we want to bring in Vinoo Varghese, who's been standing by with us. He's a defense attorney and former prosecutor, also a visiting faculty member at Harvard Law School's Trial Advocacy Workshop.
You know, Vinoo, we were talking during the sentencing about how it felt like there was a conversation really happening between the two. Is that standard? Is that typical that they, or does it kind of show you what kind of relationship the judge and the defendant had in this case?
Well, if I were Murdaugh's lawyer, I would not have let him spoken at that moment. It's something, because nothing good is going to come of that. The judge was basically challenging him, and took the quotation that was used during trial, from Sir Walter Scott.
Yes.
Tangled web we weave and we practice to deceive. It seemed the judge had maybe never heard that before, but to have Murdaugh actually repeat it was not a good look. The only good part of it that came out was when Murdaugh said that he didn't kill anyone. He maintained his innocence. He said so in a forceful manner. But I don't think there was any good that was going to come of that. And the judge questioned why he waived his right to make a statement. I think his lawyers at that point should have said, Judge, we object to this whole rushed sentencing process. And that's why we have advised Mr. Murdaugh to waive that right that he has. If you gave us time to actually prepare a mitigation package, a real time to make an argument before you, then we would have, then Mr. Murdaugh would have said something on his behalf. But his lawyers didn't say that. So, and then you have this, the judge making his commentary about Murdaugh.
So let me ask you, Vinoo, because, I sensed a wee bit of sort of you had some mild criticism for the judge when we spoke a little bit earlier. When the judge was speaking, I almost got the sense, I almost wanted to say, did you watch the Netflix special? It was like he was incorporating not just what he heard during this murder trial, but the reaction outside of the courtroom, the history of the Murdaugh family. He talked about the influence that the family has had over the legal system in this area for so long. He talked about Alec Murdaugh prosecuting people in his courtroom, and some of those people receiving the death penalty.
Yes, I thought that in particular, when he said that stood out.
I thought it was interesting, because I thought it felt like he was sort of going beyond just the boundaries of what was heard and testified to within the courtroom. I don't know if you found that too, Vinoo.
The only thing I took, I would say, potential exception to, everything you mentioned, I thought in light of what had happened, and if he believes, which he does, that Alex Murdaugh is guilty, then it was within the realm of things a judge can say, in sentencing, and the factors he can consider. And I think he left something out, which was, you are a disgrace to your family heritage. He could have added that. I said, your family was respected here. You've destroyed that. You've destroyed your family name. The thing that kind of caught me, and I remember writing it down as he said it, was the most heinous crime known to man. I imagine there could be people who could disagree with him, particularly if you kill and fly a plane into the Twin Towers and kill 3,000 people, right? I mean, there's different ways of looking at this. You certainly say that it was a heinous crime. How could you kill yourself? How could you live with yourself for having killed your wife and your son? And when the interesting part, and this is where I think Murdaugh, could have done better, was when the judge said to him, well, maybe it wasn't you, it was your addicted self, the monster you've become.
Yes.
Murdaugh at that point should have said, Judge, I didn't kill them.
Right.
I already told you that. He stood silent. He almost looked like he nodded.
You're right.
And I was like, ugh, that's not a good look for him.
Yeah.
And if anything, he didn't stay stone faced enough.
Yeah.
But well, I was going to ask Vinoo, at the same time, though, I mean, a jury did convict him of murder. So he has been found guilty given all of that. Do you think that if he had spoken out and said something and showed remorse of any kind here, it really would have made any difference at this point?
Absolutely not. But, you know, the way this has been a public trial, right? So he's not only been convicted in court, but he's been convicted in the court of public opinion. So part of this he's got to look at and say, you know what, I've taken this position, I argued this position, and, you know, it needs to stay consistent. And I think that would have been important for him to have said that, you know, at least something when he said, no, Judge, it wasn't me, I didn't do it. And it looked like he gave up at that point. Well, and, you know, the judge spoke about an appeal process. There's no doubt that there's going to be an appeal. And as I mentioned when we were speaking earlier, you know, Murdaugh taking the stand at that point has basically, for the most part, killed his appellate chances, because he's put it on a case, and the appellate courts forgive prosecutors for wrongdoing when a defendant puts on a case.
So listen, that's what I was going to ask you. You know, the judge and everyone expects an appeal. I know you can't, this was a weeks-long trial, so you can't go through everything, but sort of your superficial glance, on what grounds would there be an appeal?
Well, the main thing was the evidence that was allowed in for all his financial misdeeds. I mean, the defense has a real strong argument that so improperly tainted the jurors' ability to be fair and impartial, and that forced Murdaugh to take the stand to try to explain away and to deal with those things, because otherwise, if he had been given, or if those financial crimes had been left out, well, then you have the prosecution without any sort of motive. And, you know, I spoke 2 days ago with some of your colleagues on the morning show, and I told them that, you know, the idea that the prosecution theory, to me, sounded crazy when you think about it, that the man killed his wife and son to distract attention away from financial investigations. That is a huge stretch to go from fraudster to murderer. You usually don't see this as you go from a white collar crime to a blue collar crime. I mean, you know, so that's a stretch. And I believe that if the judge had not allowed those financial cases to come in, then Murdaugh has the ability to just deal with this from basically an academic point of view and see where the prosecution could go wrong. And he might have had a better shot at an acquittal.
Mm-hmm. Given all that, the jury and the judge have made their decision. And Vinoo, we really appreciate all of your insight through it all.